Welcome back to 755 is Real. I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer at The Athletic. I'm with my co-host, Eric O'Flaherty. What's going on, Eric?
What's up, Dave?
Well, a lot, man. We were just about to start and got news. Jeff Passan was first to report this, and I did get it confirmed that Ian Anderson is going to have – they haven't announced it yet. The Braves haven't announced it yet. They'll probably announce it later today, but he's going to have TJ surgery, and he will obviously miss the rest of the season. He left his AAA start about a week ago, or a little more than that, complaining of elbow pain, and it would kind of explain how poorly he pitched in spring, probably. And so rough year for him, rough since last summer when he got sent down, but maybe this was building up. I don't know. I mean, you would know better than me how that might happen.
I tore mine in 2012 and didn't have the surgery. Well, I mean, I think I tore it probably 5 years prior to that, but it gradually worsens to the point where you need it fixed. But I did an MRI and I guess it was like June of 2012 or July, and we knew the tear was there, but I was still getting people out. So I was like, I'm not gonna, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of mindset. And then I came back the next spring and I was throwing like 84. And I had this elbow pain, which, if I washed my hair, I'd get a sharp pain in it, but it was manageable.
Right.
So I didn't really mess with it until I started pitching, and I was having a good season in 2013, but the stuff just wasn't there. Like every single mistake I made was just getting pounded. So finally I went and I said, look, I need to get this looked at again. And we did another MRI. It gotten a lot worse. And I was just in a position where it's like, I can try to battle through this year, but I was heading into free agency. Yeah. If I have this thing in August, I'm missing, I'm not even having a job for probably 2 years. So we got it fixed and did it. But it's probably, for me, if you're Ian, it's like best case scenario, because now you're off the hook for how shitty you've pitched the last however long. You have something to look to, because when you don't have something like this to point to and you've pitched the way he's pitched, you're just searching. And now you're starting to wonder, am I just bad? Like, am I not as good as I thought? Is my stuff just never going to play in this league? Yeah. And so you get this done and it's like, it's kind of a fresh start for yourself mentally, and a good explanation for probably why his stuff hasn't been the same and he's been getting hit.
Yeah, as you've noted on here before, if you did an MRI of every veteran pitcher,
85-90%
would have some form of tear. People don't understand that. They hear tear and they're like, oh, TJ. But it's just a degree of tear. There's slight tears, which, it's kind of like when you sprain your knee. People hear tear and they think it's, when you sprain your knee, a lot of times you tear the ligament to a degree. Yeah. It's just how bad.
You're right.
And if it's not bad, if it's just some fibers, it can heal on its own without surgery.
Yeah. Same you can't favor your other arm when you're pitching, and give that thing time to heal up. You're just going to keep stressing that joint.
But Maddox pitched I heard the last 3, 4, 5 years of his career with a torn UCL. So
and Ari Dickey didn't even have one. So it's just part of the potion.
That's crazy, man. That is
it
insane.
Is crazy.
That I've never that he was able to pitch without having that stabilizing ligament there. Just but it might have helped him the way he, the way he worked around it, Might have helped him throw the knuckleball, might have helped him last as long as he did. Who knows, man? But that is so strange. I've never heard of that with anybody else, obviously. So so that's bad news, but it's good news for Ian, and at least he has an explanation for how, because we were last night just talking about this, how you've never seen a guy that young go from, he's got some stats, postseason stats, that only like 2 other pitchers in history have had an ERA that low and that many starts in a postseason. Yeah. So to go from that against great lineups, very good to great lineups in a postseason, to, giving up 3 homers in the first 9 batters you faced in a minor league game, AAA game,
And that's when you start asking yourself questions. It's like, for me, I started asking myself, Ryan Howard was just crushing the ball off me. Another dude that I gotten out 5 times in a row with 4 strikeouts hits a homer off me. Right. Some rookie that gets called up to fill in for the Dodgers takes me deep. I'm like, okay, why am I getting hit like this when the year before, when I felt pretty similar, I'm having a lot of success? And you start asking yourself those questions. And for Ian, it was pretty extreme. Giving up however many home runs in a AAA start when you dominated the playoffs just a year and a half before that is, it's pretty alarming.
And you should be entering the prime of your career.
Yeah.
It's not like you're 35,
Yeah.
So anyway, good news for the Braves last night. It was a hell of a game against the Reds. It went from potentially being a very bad loss after they blew a 3-1 lead with it was a night where AJ just didn't have his normal stuff. He gave up a couple of weak hits, but gave up 2 runs to tie in the 9th. Then the Reds score in the top of the 10th, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be a brutal loss. It's going to be 4 in a row. They haven't lost 4 in a row since 2021, and they're all going to be at home and blah, blah, blah. And in a matter of seconds, they turned that story right around because Sean Murphy hits the first pitch of the bottom of the 10th out to straightaway center for a 2-run walk-off homer, with the ghost runner second, which obviously would not have been possible in baseball before the last few years.
2-run leadoff homer.
A 2-run leadoff homer in the 10th inning. So it became a really, it's just amazing how emotions can swing so quickly in baseball like that. But it went from being a potentially kind of not a devastating loss this early, but a 4th loss in a row to being a really huge moment because it's Sean Murphy's first homer for the Braves, his first career walk-off homer. And, and he had helped Bryce Elder through 6 really strong innings. Bryce Elder looked great last night.
Yeah, he did.
And it was the first time Murphy had caught him, and they were really on the same page all night. So it just ended up being a really big night, especially for Elder and for Murphy, obviously.
Yeah, when I saw, I was in and out of the game watching, but when I saw Elder was into the 5th, I was like, I bet he doesn't have many walks.
Right.
And he finished with 1 and 7 strikeouts. But what I did see out of him was just a lot of quality pitches around the edge of the zone, being aggressive, kind of what we saw when he was really good last year through those starts. And I think, he's got that low 90s fastball that Dodd and Shuster are bringing too, but that you saw the difference of what aggression with quality pitches can do for you, and probably a good one for those guys to watch.
Yeah, he's got good movement, man, on that sinker, slider. He's throwing 4 pitches. He's throwing them all in the strike zone. He's not nibbling. He's the guy, that was the problem when he got sent down early last year because he was throwing he was issuing so many walks. He was scared to throw it. And he went down to AAA and the mindset changed, and he realized I got to trust my stuff and be aggressive. If it's going to get hit, it's going to get hit. And he came back. He's been a different guy since he came back. 5 really good starts last year after he came back up. They were all against the Nats and Marlins, but now he's had 2 really good ones to start this year. And the Reds are a bad team, but they also face the Cardinals, man. I mean, this has been he's been a revelation. I mean, and never more important because now with Ian out, with Shuster obviously not ready, not yet, and with Dodd having 1 really good start at St. Louis and 1 they're a reminder that, he's probably not ready yet either. There was a reason why they didn't come to spring training as candidates for the 5th starter job. So they're really going to need Elder, I think, to step up. And Soroka's pitched well today for Gwinnett, by the way, in an early game, started at 11 a.m. He's pitched well so far. So those 2 could really end up being important. They're going to be important for the Braves. And they get Kyle Wright back tonight, which cannot be a minute too soon. He makes his debut tonight after starting the year on the IL while he's building arm strength because he missed a few weeks of spring training with that shoulder. Got a cortisone injection in January. So to get him back, he led the league and led the majors in wins last year, low 3s ERA. And then Max Fried not far behind that. So the rotation could really get upgraded in a hurry because, you look at it, they started Shuster and Dodd in 4 of their first 9-10 games.
Yeah. It's when you look at the team's record and the guys they've lost early on, or didn't have like Kyle, it's pretty impressive where the team's at.
Yeah. For all the panic, when they lost 3 in a row to the Padres, everybody's like, oh my God, this team's not going to make the playoffs. The social media panic. They're in first place.
Yeah.
So
I saw somebody say, how are they going to bounce back from this, 8-4 or whatever?
What, from being in first place?
Yeah. But man, that Padres team is good.
Yes, the Padres are very good, and they face them again next week. That's going to be interesting with a better rotation. It's going to be interesting. They get 3 out there in San Diego starting Monday. So, and that place has got it's a much better home field advantage than it used to be for them because it's not just a laid back crowd enjoying the weather now. They're charged up out there now that the Padres are good.
What a difference it makes to spend some money and chase a ring, from ownership like that. Is used to go to San Diego and it was like, I felt like it was either Bark in the Park day, and that's why people were there, or it was just people walking by because you could see in from the street and paid their $7 to check it out and go sit in upper deck. But there felt like it didn't feel like a organized fan base, like they were all. It was kind of just random people filtering in, and then those playoff games they put on TV last year were insane. The whole crowd was into it, and it was sold out.
So the Braves are 7-4. A game up on the Mets, 2.5 up on the Phillies in the East. Just as a reminder, at the end of May last year, the Braves were 23-27 and 10.5 games out of first place. Just a reminder. And we've seen the Mets already, how many catastrophic injuries they've had already. I mean, at least one catastrophic and a couple other ones pretty bad. So, no time to panic, folks. Braves they got a hell of a lineup, man. The lineup is even better than I thought it was going to be because Arcia, this isn't anything fluky what Arcia is doing. He's hitting at the bottom of the order, and he looks good, man. And he looked good all spring. He worked on his hitting, the winter ball. He knew the defense was already there, and he thought if I have a chance to win the shortstop job this spring, I need to hit. And so he's focused on hitting and improving some things in the offseason. Went to winter ball to play and really focus on hitting. And I mean, he looks good. This is a guy that had a couple of 15 homer seasons for the Brewers not too long ago. And he looks, right now he's getting some big hits. He had a walk-off to start this homestand. He had a big hit last night, driving a run. Good piece of hitting last night to go down and get one and just kind of cast it out in the outfield for RBI.
Yeah, he wasn't in the 9-hole last night, but when he's
been there mostly. Yeah.
That's one of the things about a deep lineup is Arcia gets to hit with Acuna on deck.
Yeah.
Versus being in the 6 or 7 hole with a pitcher or, back when he was with Milwaukee, he might have been having a pitcher back him up.
Yeah.
Or you're in the 6 or 7 hole with another guy that's, doing a platoon thing. And so you're going to get 2 guys that you can work through. When you have Acuna behind you, you're getting something to hit. And I think he's a pretty aggressive hitter, so that serves him well because he's going to get stuff in the zone. Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't point out Matt Olson right now is leading the Braves in home runs, 3, doubles, 5, RBIs, 11, walks, 10, strikeouts, 15, on-base percentage, 462, slugging percentage, 667, and OPS, 1129. He's leading the Braves in all of those categories. He's second in batting average, or third in batting average at 333, behind Arcia, who's hitting 341, and Acuna, who's hitting 340. I mean, those guys have been carrying the offense, and Riley's had some big knocks too.
But, I just imagine maybe the confidence that Matt's getting from not having the shift to deal with.
Yeah.
Because if you're like 1 for 3 or 0 for 3 in a day, and you come up in that 4th at bat and hit a laser to right field, and there's just a random dude standing, and catches it.
Dude.
It's like from somewhere on the field, they just put someone randomly in right field, shallow right, and he catches your line drive that should be a single. Just what that changes for a hitter's mindset going 1 for 4 versus 0 for 4. I think getting an RBI, things like that. Like, I think a lot of lefties are going to build a lot of confidence this year.
I think it's a combination of that and the changes he made in the offseason are really he's allowing the ball to travel so much more and to use the whole field. Last year he was going way back, all his weight on his back foot where the toe tap was off, and then he was like he called it crashing forward with his hands. And as a result, he was susceptible to a lot of pitches. He couldn't catch up with things that he could normally.
Up in the zone, diving like that.
And if you look at him this year, he's so much better balanced. And, I mean, he's got a few hits to the right side, but he's also shooting some balls to the left. Like, he got to hit right up the left field line.
Yeah.
So he's using the whole field. And, I mean, he just looks really good up there right now. This is a guy that he keeps that together. You're talking – he could be an MVP candidate, man.
Yeah, it really – I mean, for me, the shifting, even on the left side of the field, there's going to be 2 guys over there, but they're not going to put someone in the hole. They're going to play more of a standard position or move the shortstop more up the middle. But there's just something about I bet Gallo's having a better season too. I haven't looked it up, but these guys
better, not much better.
Not much better.
No.
But guys that
But he strikes
hit
out
those
so much.
He strikes out a lot.
He's
I don't know. It's once you get a few hits rolling though, and your confidence, you start swinging free.
Yeah.
And the combination of not being new to a team.
Yeah.
You know, like your old hitting coach would probably know these are your bad habits. Your new hitting coach has to kind of learn them, and you're trying to learn him and work together. So having comfort this year is probably a huge thing for Matt too.
And he's playing great defense, by the way, too.
Yeah.
Great defense,
He's
scooping everything. He had that unassisted double play the other night, that huge play where he used all his height, but he's had some great picks, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's been really impressive early. And he talked about hitting behind Acuna and in front of Riley, how perfect that is. Because with Acuna being healthy, they're not going to put Acuna on if they can help it. And so he's on so often when Olsen comes up to bat the first time. And then you got Riley behind him. So they're not going to pitch around Olsen, you know?
You got to come see him.
It's the perfect spot for a hitter. That number 2 spot for the Braves right now.
Yeah.
Arcia, been fantastic. Any of us who question the shortstop decision in camp right now are just shutting up because he's looked great. He's playing as good or better defense than Shoemake can play. He's played great defense, and he's hitting better than either of those rookies can hit, obviously. I
didn't realize he had such a good arm.
Yes, he's got a cannon, man.
Yeah.
He really does. I was watching him in BP yesterday, taking infield yesterday, and strong and accurate every single throw. And he works hard before games too to make every throw hard and accurate. But yeah, great range, makes every play. Really quick hands and feet on turning double plays. The turn is really athletic, and he's hitting. Like I said, he's got 2 doubles, 2 homers, 937 OPS, and he's tied with Acuna for most runs scored on the team with 10, which is only one off the lead, NL lead shared by Mookie, Betts, and Freddie. What
a difference, right place, right time can make. If the Braves signed a shortstop this offseason or signed Dansby back, and Arcia doesn't get a chance to have this year, but what this year being here and getting this chance, and if he plays his ass off, what it can change the rest of his career.
And they signed him to a 3-year, $7 million contract on opening day.
Yep.
I mean, that's nice to know you got him there. So, meanwhile,
you might regret that deal if he has a big season.
Yeah. You got the 2 kids playing middle infield down at Gwinnett. Yeah. And if one of them shows he's ready, okay. Yeah. You got Arcia, you could trade one of them. You got it opens up so many opportunities. And it's the one position where you don't have to spend a lot of money because whether it's him or one of these kids, you're not going to be spending much money at that position for several years.
Yeah.
So that helps when you.
That feels good knowing you got him locked up cheap. It gives Grissom and Shoemake so much time too.
Yeah.
You don't like that when you're the shortstop in AAA trying to prove yourself, seeing him play like that, but it gives them time to get right.
And Arcia is a great guy in the clubhouse too. Teammates love him. Love him. Teammates love him. Really professional.
Like a fun guy to go out with.
He's funny. Yeah, he's funny, but he's really professional. Yeah. Yeah, he's been around. He lost his job in Milwaukee, got traded. So, he's been through some stuff and understands it. And, he's a good guy to have there. So, meanwhile, on the pitching side, the guys you thought would leave the Braves, the starting rotation, Bryce Elder and Jesse Chavez, who came to camp on a minor league contract.
Yeah.
Elder has allowed no runs, 8 hits, and 4 walks with 13 strikeouts in 12 1/3 innings in his 2 starts. Got a 0.97 whip and a 195 opponent's average. Jesse has allowed 2 hits, no walks, 5 strikeouts in 5 1/3 innings over 6 scoreless appearances, has a 0.38 whip and a 111 opponent's average.
I remember when I was in Oakland with Chavez, and we were doing PFPs with all the young guys, and he happened to be throwing a bullpen that was like right in our line of sight where guys could see where he was placing the ball. And he probably threw 25 pitches and didn't miss a spot by more than, half an inch. And these guys were just blown away watching him. And I'm thinking, he's probably hungover too.
He probably was for sure.
He's incredible though, man. I mean, when he came up with Atlanta that first time, he was just throwing hard. But when he went to Oakland and started getting longer outings, he really learned how to pitch, and he developed that cutter. He could put that cutter wherever he wants. And it just goes to show you, if you find a way to have a tight pitch you can place, you don't need to throw 96 to pitch in the big leagues. But you do have to sign a minor league deal and earn it.
And if you have big balls and you are fearless, and you
He
will throw
is.
it to anybody.
Yeah. I think he's at a point in his career where he's like, whenever I
Yeah.
stop getting outs, just take me out back, send me home. But
I'll take it to the house when I'm done.
yeah,
But until then, I'm going to keep going.
he's
He'll
going
be
to keep
40
chucking.
this summer, man.
I wouldn't
40.
he's an alien. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays till he's 45.
And then
I saw him throw when I was in AA against him. I saw him throwing 99.
Wow.
So he at 150, 160 pounds.
Wow.
So he's been doing it a long time.
And he will go straight into a coaching position.
Yeah, probably.
He will.
He might take it to the house and disappear though.
But he told me he wants to be a coach.
Did he?
And he will not wait a week to get hired as a coach by someone.
No. Yeah,
he's the Braves have an opening, or they might just create one for him in a minor league level. He could be their pitching coach at any minor league level. Cranny's getting up there.
Spanish.
He speaks enough, I think, to communicate at least with them. Yeah. He's been around. Just when they're around that long,
you pick some stuff up
with that name, so you hang around with some of
those. Everybody tries to talk. Yeah.
It's funny, man. Some of them are as bad as me. Elder last night, he was this kid, man. I love how he handles this stuff. He's so humble. He's a confident guy, but he was more humbled last year when he got sent down early on. That was a great experience for him going down to AAA. Former big stud from Texas Longhorns, high draft pick. He got humbled last year, but even then he wasn't cocky before he got sent down. But since he came back, he takes nothing for granted, but he says all the right things. He's just a professional. Yeah. He's not loud or cocky. He's just confident. But he said he was talking about Sean Murphy last night, hitting the walk-off after, guiding him through. And he said, I can't say enough about what he did behind the plate. Obviously, for him to cap it off like that was pretty impressive. That's actually the first time I've thrown to him, and I was very impressed. We were on the same page the whole time, and the game he called was great. So I can't thank him enough. And for him to go out and win it for us is special. And then Murphy, who I'm sure you've seen interviews. Do you know him a little bit, or I don't know, but
I know nothing.
He's the most modest, down-to-earth guy. I mean, he does not like talking about himself. He's all team all the time. I mean, he is. I mean, this guy's, and everybody in the clubhouse loves this guy.
That's who you want catching. I can tell you that.
Ultimate pro. Loves to study all the pitchers, but when he came over here, he was spending just countless hours learning all the pitchers. So, but anyway, we told him what Elder had said about that. I mean, he said, I appreciate it, but he said all the credit goes to Bryce. He threw the pitches. I just helped him along a bit. All the credit goes to him. He's the one who executed. He worked his mix, kept the ball down, threw it where he needed to throw it. He was fantastic tonight. And we asked him about, what he's thought so far, 11 games in of his career with the Braves and spring training. And he said, in his quiet, subdued way, he said, how much fun are you having? He said, a blast. He said, all these guys are so good. They've been welcoming. They've been awesome. I already feel like I'm part of the team, and I just got here. He said, I love it here. So he went from Oakland to this, man.
That seems to be the experience of pretty much everybody coming over. I don't know. I mean, obviously you're not going to say it if it's not, but there's pretty much every guy seems to say that same thing, is you feel like you fit in right away. Al's done a good job building that.
Yeah. I asked him about, I said, are you ready to catch every day until Travis comes back, if that's what they ask you to do? And he goes, absolutely.
You can take one look at him, and I can tell you he wants to catch 160 games.
Think about that, going from Oakland, those crowds they've had, which have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller every year, to this. They just sold out 4 straight games against the Padres, over 40,000. They had 163,000 for 4 games. You lose 3 in a row. The Reds are in town on a Monday night with school in session, which in the Braves back in the day, not long ago, that would have been 12,000 people.
There were some rough nights at Turner.
Announced crowd last night was over 30 on a Monday night with school in session against the pitiful Reds. Now, those weren't all tickets used, but there were a good 25,000 in the crowd. It was plenty loud on a Monday. It's just totally changed.
Yeah, I wonder if having, shorter games is going to have an effect on that too. Not being stuck in traffic to get home and a shorter game could save people an hour, hour and a half.
I think especially after people get used to doing it, they come out and experience a few of those games. then that's one of those things that could affect your decision. Like, say it's Wednesday night and your kid's got school tomorrow and you're going, do we want to go to the game tonight? Normally in the past, you'd be thinking, okay, we're not going to get out of there until 10:30.
And we're going to be stuck there in
traffic. We're not going to get home until 11:30. Now it's like you can legitimately get out in a normal 9-inning game in 2 hours, 20 minutes instead of 3 hours.
Yeah.
So last night was a 10-inning game that went kind of sideways late. And it was still 2 hours and 43 minutes.
That's wild. I didn't want to give the pitch clock thing any credit, just the traditional, like, it goes against what baseball is about, blah, blah, blah.
It's fantastic, man.
Watching the game, it's like, you're not getting lost on your phone in between pitches.
Yeah.
Yep. For me, it was always like, there's not that much to think about. Read the swing, get on the mound. And for hitters, but some guys, and all it takes is one pitcher in the game to just drag it out, and I think for most guys are going to adjust to it pretty well. But if you had a guy like, I remember Miguel Batista when I played with him, there was a game where the Chicago announcers were yelling, throw the ball.
Yeah.
So it's like taking so long. And he was probably like 40 seconds in between pitches. You speed everybody up. Yeah, infielders are
Fielders love it.
Yeah.
Fielders love it. Because
it's
they're
just
on
a
their
better
toes.
pace.
And you're not on your heels waiting for a guy to go 25, 30 seconds between pitches.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought, like, okay, it's not going to shave that much time. It's not going to get people interested. But the thing I've noticed is just that the action's better. There's more happening. Even if the game was only 20 minutes faster, you just feel like it's rolling along at a better pace.
And so far, people feared that, a game might be decided, like the Braves' first game of spring training was decided. You don't want a game decided on. So far, that hasn't happened. You've had a couple, like you had a strikeout Machado and got tossed out of the game. But other than that, there haven't been a lot of really pivotal moments caused by this. And they've been vigilant about it too. They've been, and I think that was wise to do that, to do it early, to make everybody know we're serious about this. You're not going to start cutting corners and slowly work back to taking 20 seconds with nobody on base. They've been vigilant about it, and people have adapted. I find it funny, when you hear people say, that's not baseball. They act like they're traditionalists. They've been watching the game for 10, 15 years. Like, go back a little further. Baseball was never 3.5 hour games for 9 innings. This is the traditional length of games. And pitchers didn't used to take 25 seconds between pitches. This is how they work. This is tradition. It's just being enforced by a clock. But this is much closer to the way the game was played for 150 years. Than what had happened.
Yeah, you just had to enforce it, but that's pretty much the pace that I think it's the pace everybody wants, and it makes the game a lot more watchable.
I mean, since Nomar Garciaparra started the whole thing with batters, changing all the, doing the batting gloves, undoing the Velcro and all that stuff, everybody slowly started doing that. It became the norm.
Yeah, it's like nobody's going to say anything when you're a superstar doing it, but when you got the ninth guy on the bench that has a 15-second routine to get back in the box, and like I remember standing on the mound for guys and being like, "Can we get this shit going?"
Yeah,
so it's not just the pitch clock; it's the hitter clock too.
The hitter that comes up, does the thing in the sand, says hello to the ump, says hello to the catcher, does it to his coach.
Wants to hear his whole walkout song. Wants to get to the beat drop in his walkout. Get in the box.
Right. But it's funny because the Nomar Garciaparra, I remember when he started doing that, people talked about how weird it was. It was like, Jesus, look at this guy's routine. It became the norm. Yeah. Nobody thought anything of a guy adjusting his batting gloves every single pitch.
Yep.
The Velcro. And that's just like compulsive. That's OCD shit, man.
Yeah.
But it became like the norm. And now batters cannot do it. They can't take that time. So now you can see them keeping a foot in the batter's box like they should instead of walking around, doing all this, looking at the third base coach, looking at the dugout. I love it. I just think it's so much better. And it gets back to how the game's supposed to move along. And it's only going to help. It's only going to help ratings and people coming out to the park. Like you said.
It's unfortunate that they had to add a clock to get this pace, but I'm very happy with the pace. And when you watch it, there's a lot more action.
You talked about Shuster, how you weren't overwhelmed at all by his stuff. And I think we've seen, he's a guy, he can get by with that stuff in the big leagues, but he's going to have to throw strikes and good strikes and Dylan Dodd, same thing. That game against St. Louis, we've seen it so many times. A guy will come up from the minors. Other team has no idea what he's about really, especially at the start of the season. I mean, sure, if they went and found video from AAA, but he's going to face those guys differently than he does big leaguers. But so anyway, he pitched great in that St. Louis game. Then the other night, he got rocked, man. And if you watched him, it was his slider wasn't. He's basically a 2-pitch guy, fastball slider. He does a few changeups, but he's going to have to change up a lot more because the slider was great against St. Louis. Against the Padres, it wasn't. And oh my God, they teed off because he starts throwing more fastballs. He threw like 60% fastballs. Yeah. Whereas against the Cardinals, he threw 49% sliders, 47 fastballs. He's throwing that low 90s fastball to the Padres, and it was just not a good mix at all. It wasn't effective. Didn't throw changeups until late, too.
Yeah, it's just the velocity thing, I mean, it's kind of just breathing room. It's like it's room for error. It's not that you can't pitch low 90s in the big leagues.
Elder,
he did it yesterday, but there's a way to do it, and you can't fall behind. Okay, right. You can't walk guys. I mean, because you don't have the stuff to just strike out the side and get out of a mess. Right. Your number one goal is you just can't create any messes. You have to force the other team to create a mess for you. And the crazy thing, if you watch batting practice, you got a coach with, he can't even lift his shoulder above his arm. He's trying to throw meatballs. Guys pop out. Guys ground up to shortstop. This is what I always tell young pitchers. You can watch batting practice, and the guy will take a full round of batting practice at 70 miles an hour right down the middle, and he bats 385.
Yeah.
We used to do this. We'd sit in the outfield and watch. Like, that's a pop-up. Oh, Simmons gets to that. So he's 0 for 2, and you'd watch his 7 swings, and he gets 2 hits. Okay, the ball's getting hit hard, but if you force guys to put the ball in play, it's that hard to hit a baseball.
Like that's what Oliver Perez told Chavez early in his career, and he said he took that lesson all the rest of his career.
I saw it my second year in pro ball. We had this old coach named Tommy Cruz, and he could not lift his arm above his shoulder, so he had to. He had to fire from below his shoulder with like a little wrist flick and push his elbow.
Right.
And he's getting pop-ups. Nobody could hit him, honestly. We were like, oh, Tommy's throwing. He's going to carve Valentine up. We'd watch him get 4 or 5 pop-ups out of the best hitter. But you learn that lesson, and this is, if you want to throw low 90s, you got to make pitches, and you have to be fearless and aggressive. And Chavez does it. Bryce did it yesterday. It can be done. But the second you come out nibbling, you're done. They're, especially big league hitters, they're going to sit back and wait for their pitch, and you don't have the stuff to get away with your mistake. So these guys need to watch, Elder and Chavez and guys pitch that make quality pitches with that intent of I'm not afraid. Because as soon as the hitters feel like you're nibbling and you're afraid, they just start drooling.
And I think they got to develop the better third pitch. I mean, especially Dodd. He's got to throw that changeup more, because if the slider's not there like the other, then you're helpless. You're not going to get by on 92-mile-an-hour fastballs.
Yeah, I don't know. His slider looks pretty good when I saw it in spring training in that St. Louis start. But I saw something Cruz said. So Cruz had his first at bat against him, and then he did an in-game interview, which is like after his home run or something. But he said in his first at bat, he had to tell his team, he's like, the slider's not really like a slider; it's like a changeup. So for me, that meant that it was kind of backing up and going straight down. So if he was looking for the slider and it backs up and goes straight down, now he's swinging inside and over the top of it. It's an awkward break. But the second time he saw it, he just destroyed it. But the point being is just that maybe he didn't have his slider in that start.
Right.
But that's the same concept of having that third pitch is, what do you do when you don't have your slider and you throw 92?
Yeah.
It's, you got to have something else to go to.
Yeah, I mean, and Elder's got he's up there throwing 4 pitches basically, but
and they're all tight.
Yeah, Elder had he had an interesting comment about last night. We're talking about the difference. Asked him, he said, "Is your slider just that much better this year than last year?" Because he was really throwing some good ones last night, and he had a great, interesting comment about it. He said, the question was, is your slider that much better this season? He said, I think a lot of it is just last year throwing the cutter kind of messed with it a little bit. So this year, just kind of going away from the cutter and going to 4-seam, even though it kind of has a little cut to it.
Yeah.
But going true 4-seam allows me to throw the slider like I've always thrown it. So the main thing is I'm just so much more comfortable throwing it this year. Just trust it and let it roll. I think it's the slider that I've always had. Just last year, it wasn't as good as it had been this year, as it has been this year.
You can kind of have them blend into one pitch, or get kind of caught in between on the releases and have a hard time separating the two. And then if your fastball's already cutting and then you're adding a little cut to it by thinking of it that way.
Yeah.
Like when you think four seam and you throw a four seam that happens to cut, it's different than when you're trying to throw a cutter.
Yeah.
And you're coming around the ball. The two pitches will actually blend together where it's a lot easier for the hitters because they're like, it's coming into me anyway. But four seam life, even if it's got a little cut and ride to it, is different than purposely throwing a cutter. And then when you go to the slider, it's not that much different than the cutter. So the hitters are seeing something, pretty similar. But when you go four seam and slider, there's more of a stark contrast in the pitches.
And you talk about conviction all the time, throwing a pitch, even if
it's
whatever
everything.
the pitch. Well, he said last night, said again on the difference between last year and this year, he said the pitches I'm throwing, I'm just so much more committed to them and just kind of just trusting that if I execute it, I'm pleased with it. You've talked about that same thing.
It's everything. I mean, there was times where, you go out there and you lack confidence and you throw a scared pitch.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, a scared pitch gets hit like 98% of the time. Or you can just, when you're ballsy and you're confident and you make that mistake right down the middle, but you threw it with attitude and conviction, you get an infield pop-up. Like the hitters there's something about a confidently thrown pitch, whether it's the way you finish it or your body language or your direction. When you're scared and kind of like pulling off and trying to guide a pitch, the hitters just destroy it. It's like a 9 out of 10 thing. You don't get away with many mistakes at all when you're scared.
Yeah. He said, Nick Green asked Snit last night after the game if he thinks that that Elder's throwing, that he's pitching with a chip on his shoulder. Because if you think about it, Elder came to spring training as kind of the third candidate for the fifth starter job behind Ian and Soroka. And Soroka got hurt, and Ian pitched terrible early. And Elder had like a bad start, walked the yard, gave up a grand slam, whatever. But he got optioned pretty quick when they saw these two rookies. They kind of basically said, okay, we're going to let the rookies fight it out for a fifth starter, and really didn't give Elder many chances at all in spring. So Nick thinks he's pitching with a chip on his shoulder. Snit said, I think he's just pitching like he's seizing the opportunity, like he's happy to be. I don't think he has anybody to have a chip against. But Elder said, I asked him, he said, after the kind of disappointing spring you had, how good does it feel to pitch so well the first two times they've needed you because they brought him up to pitch? And he said, it feels good. I've still got work to do, though. I think there's certain things I could have done a little better. But at the same time, I'm not going to act like I'm not pleased with how I've been throwing it. Yeah. I think I've been making the pitches that I need to make when I need to make it. So we're just going to kind of keep building off of that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to just say even keeled. And it's the same concept. When you're scared, you get shelled. Anytime you get overconfident, at least for me in baseball, anytime I let my guard down, it was like, I got this thing figured out. You just get – there's only a few guys that are so talented that they can just be anywhere they want and in any headspace and do well in the big leagues. Most guys have to stay very even keeled.
Right. But by the way, what you mentioned, Nelly Cruz, my God, that guy's like 42, 43 years old, man. Yeah. He just keeps raking. 2 doubles, a homer, 6 RBIs in that game.
Yeah, it's hard to give him too much credit with the failed tests in the past because he's probably got some leftover strength. But still, to be doing that at 43.
And that's official. He's probably a couple years older than that.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Phenomenal, yeah. They got a nice team.
I gave up the exact same homer to him.
Did you?
Yeah, my rookie year, I hung him a slider down and in, and he put it up almost in the upper deck in that old Texas stadium. But I saw that thing coming in, and, like your instincts, it's like, oh, no, not there. And he just shit on it.
And he was probably well juiced when he did it off of you.
Might have been. Yeah, that was 06.
Uh-huh.
He might have just had some natural strength back then. But either way, he had a few field tests after that. He might have been on it then, too.
As Julio Franco told me, what, the Jesus juice. Darno, we didn't mention, is out with a concussion. That, if it was just a mild concussion, at first one would be one thing, but he's had 3 in the past. So this is it's always a concern when you get multiple concussions.
Yeah.
The good thing, I guess, is that he played another inning. He had a pretty good at bat. He lined out. And most importantly, the last one was 2014. So it's not like the football, two ahead, two in like 3 weeks. That can really like ruin you. That can do damage for life. So at least it's been, a decade since he had the last one. So hopefully, but still it's a concern, and the Braves are going to be careful with it. So
I thought it right away when I saw that play. It's his leg running right into Travis's head was like,
yeah, it was bad.
That's got to be a concussion.
But how about this move by Alex, man? Because when he did it, people are like, Darno was an all-star last year. You have Contreras. Now how smart is he looking, man? You got a Gold Glover behind the plate for however long as Darno's out, and you signed him long-term. And if you looked at Darno's career, he's been injury prone.
Yeah.
A lot of freaky things, but it happens to catchers. But he's had back swings for concussions. He's had the weird injury where he broke the thumb at the plate against Toronto during the pandemic, where he stretched the thumb back, tore the ligaments. Some things happen to catchers. And as they get older, they really happen to catchers. So that catching depth is going to be huge for them. I think
he's been at his healthiest in Atlanta, right?
Yep.
Like Atlanta's the most games he's played.
He had one healthy season with the Mets, and that was it until last year. But I said in the offseason, I thought that the Murphy thing could be the most important deal that any team made in the offseason. And it really could be. It's looking like that all the time.
If he's who he looks like behind the plate. I mean,
I
didn't doubt his arm. I mean, we saw that video. But if guys when guys like Elder say what they say, it didn't sound like a courtesy. Oh yeah, and
right. And they're all saying that
did a great job back there. Guys will throw out the courtesy one, but when they go into depth, I'm like, fuck, this guy's amazing.
Yeah,
it's pretty convincing.
Last thing, I wrote a story today about Michael Tonkin. Man, what a story! This guy's like this year's Tyler Matzik and Jackson Stevens. I mean, except his road's even longer than those guys. This is a guy. I chronicled the number of places this guy pitched, but he had 5 years with the Twins through 2017. And he had worked his way up from 30th round pick to a top relief prospect with them. Had some good moments for them, but he got released after 2017. He spent, as he put it, as much time between stints in the big leagues as it had taken him to first reach the big leagues. 5 years.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, between 2017, when he was with the Twins, until this year, when he made the Braves opening day roster after a couple more injuries to other people, this guy pitched in Rochester, AAA, Sapporo, Japan, Long Island, the Ducks in the Independent League twice, 2019 and 2021, San Antonio, AAA, Reno, AAA, Tijuana, Independent League, Aguilas, Dominican Winter League twice. Then all season at Gwinnett last year, because he wasn't on the 40, they never brought him up, even though he had great numbers last year with Gwinnett. And he's 33. He got married in 2015, and he had no kids the last time he was in the big leagues. He's got 2 now.
Oh, dang.
And, I mean, you talk about dues paid. He said so many times, he said it got harder and harder each year. Like he went to a driveline type place after 2019, did the weighted balls and all that, was throwing 96, felt great about where he was. And he goes to the Diamondbacks. The end of that year, he had signed with Diamondbacks. Goes back. He thought, he might win a spot in spring training. He got to pitch 1 inning for him and got released. And he said he was throwing like 96. So he's like, why am I even doing this?
Oh my God. That's crushing when you put that
2
amount
kids.
Of work in. And you're not even a thought.
He said, and you're leaving, you got 2 kids and you're leaving to go out and make like not even enough money to feed them.
Yeah.
And he said his wife told him, she said, if you feel good about how you're throwing, you still think you can do it, then go to indie ball and keep doing it, keep pursuing it. And he said if it wasn't for her, he would not have kept doing it.
You need that, because a lot of women are like, you suck. Why aren't you at home helping with these diapers?
2 kids, man.
Yeah. You're out there chasing this dream.
Yeah. And I'm home taking care of these kids and trying to get by on a AAA salary.
Yeah.
Or indie ball salary.
Any money. Yeah. I wish people understood too that how much harder that route is because of the facilities, the travel, everything about those levels.
Yeah.
The food sucks. Your body feels terrible. You don't just show up in like Little League and play a game. The amount of work that you have to put in every day, the facilities make it harder. There's the stuff you need is just not there. So you're scrapping it together. You're working out in LA Fitness. You know, they'll let you in at 10 a.m. when they're not busy. Piecing this together, you're eating peanut butter and jelly, Totino's pizzas, just garbage food. Your body feels terrible. You don't get the private chartered flight. You know, you're waking up at 5 a.m. and catching flights, or if you even have a flight, you know, sometimes you're riding buses 5 or 6 hours.
You're in the Mexican League riding buses.
Yes.
Not even able to order food.
Yeah. And worried about your safety in some places too. So to go from anytime a guy goes from big league time back to that life, you got to want it bad. And I always respect guys that can do that, because I got to the point in my career was like, I'm not going to AAA, you know, and I probably could have gone down, figured out a pitch, done all these things, and maybe made it back. But it's a tough route to take. So I respect guys that do it.
AJ said, you got to give them guys a lot of credit. He said he was talking about the three in general that I mentioned, but then he's talking about specifically about Tonkin. And he said this game, because you get off the 40-man roster, you're out of options. That can really screw you.
Yeah.
It can help you if you're really good and young, you know, you're out of options because they're going to keep you. But if you're not, then you can just get passed over and over. You sign a minor league deal and they're like, okay, now we don't need to bring him up. He's out of options.
You get one inning,
he's not on the
training
40.
and released.
Right. Yeah. He's not on the 40. We can't bring him up. He's not worth that. But AJ said this game, you can be taken out of it so quickly, and it takes forever to get back in. It takes a lot of just heart. Just stay with it. And you got to give all the props to him. I mean, he deserves to be here. He showed it in spring training, and he's going out there and pitching meaningful innings for us. He's got those 94, 95, good sinker, good slider, occasional cutter. He's got a 0.56 whip so far in 5 1/3 innings. 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, 2 hits allowed. So he could end up being pretty big for him, especially because a couple of the other guys they thought they were going to be counting on still need some work.
Yeah.
So 6'7", slender, still slender, and obviously totally appreciates his station where he is, because he has paid about as many dues as I've seen anybody pay to get back here.
Yeah, everybody, and you get so much respect from your teammates, because it's minus the superstars, almost everybody knows how fragile a career is, and just the mental battle of believing you can do it when you go to spring training, working your ass off for a whole off season, probably paid money that could have gone toward his kids and things like that.
Yeah.
Paid money he didn't have to train and do everything right. You come in feeling good, and the team just gives you 1 inning and says, see ya, buddy.
Right.
I mean, that's devastation.
And a lot of people walked away during 2020 when they were locked out with the pandemic. You know, they didn't have a chance. They weren't on a team.
A lot of guys did.
And guys like this were not getting picked up because there were no minor league teams. And then they slice off.
Kills you.
And then they slice a third of the minor league teams off. So that jobs like guys like this, that's fewer jobs for them to have, because they're moving younger guys up into
if you're 29 and you got a little big league time and you're out of options, they're going to keep the 19-year-old on that 40-man and send him to AA.
So the grind got a lot harder when they eliminated 1/3 of the minor league teams a couple of years ago. Yeah. So, but between his last appearance with the Twins in 2017, September 2017, and making the opening day roster this year, he pitched, I counted, at least 215 relief appearances for 9 teams in 4 countries.
You know what I'd do? I'd frame that when you look at somebody's baseball reference page.
Yeah.
You know, it goes through all the years.
Yeah.
I'd frame that thick gray line.
His is impressive.
I would print out reference. I would get a picture and I'd have the stats around it, but I'd have that thick gray line, and I'd have that framed in my office, because that's like to be out of the game for that amount of time. Because it goes, when I looked at it, it says 17, and then there's a thick gray line and it says 23. Like, that's the thing you're going to be the most proud of when you're done, is making it back from that space. Yeah.
Just before he had one incident, they told me. So after he got released by the Diamondbacks, he got 1 inning with them. He said, I was going to go to the Dominican for winter ball. He'd already signed. And then the Dominican team called him and said they were releasing him because of budget cuts, because during the pandemic, they weren't going to have fans in the seats. So they had budget cuts. So he's like, they released me before I even went. Then they called him back on the 22nd of December and said, can you come out and pitch in the playoffs? He said, I haven't even thrown a bullpen in 2 months. And he went out there on the 26th and pitched in the Caribbean World Series for the Dominican entry in the Caribbean World Series.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
He must have. I mean, he must have some special natural. But I mean, throw 96. But it takes most guys. I mean, at least a month to be able to. And those dudes have been hitting.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah.
they've. You know.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I think you said he was throwing 96 too.
Yeah, he's
After not
topping out
throwing.
94, 95, but he hit 96 not long ago. So
No, I mean in that Dominican
Yeah.
series when he went down there and pitched to be able to not throw for 2 months, then just turn it on like that.
yeah.
Probably needed that money. They pay you pretty good down there.
Yeah, that's why he's willing to go down there on spur of the moment. Just
Like, yeah, I need this money. I don't care. I'll go get shelled.
at Christmas time.
If I show up throwing 85.
At Christmas time, you got a wife and a little kid.
Yep.
Anyway. All right. Well, be plenty more to talk about. Things are heating up now, and this is going to be the Braves, man. They could not have, after losing 3 to San Diego, they could not have timed it better. The schedule: 3 games against the Reds, who are very bad, and then 3 games at Kansas City before you have a really tough 3-game series at San Diego. So they got a chance to win. I think they need to at least win 5 out of 6. I mean, you never say you expect to sweep anybody, but the Reds are very sweepable, and so are the Royals. So if they could win 5 out of 6 in there, that you're going to be right there again, leading the division by a few games before you go to San Diego.
Yeah, that in San Diego is going to be tough.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. 755 is real. We are out.